Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar here at St Catherine's, where we're going to focus on schooling at home, or how, as a school, we adapted to this process of learning online. I'm Robert Marshall, one of the deputy principals here, and I'm responsible for teaching and learning. And I've got sitting alongside me Angela Klancic, who's the head of the mathematics faculty. Hi, Ange, how are you?
Good, how are you? Welcome, everybody.
Now, this is actually the first time Ange and I have seen each other since last term, so it's quite nice. We've all been sitting at home, learning online and teaching online, just as your daughters have, and probably all of you are doing your work, whatever that may be. And so I suppose, Ange, one of the questions that perhaps parents might be thinking about is, how did we respond to that? And I'm thinking particularly for you, for the mathematics department, how did we respond? Because it became pretty obvious about halfway through term one, this was going to happen.
I think St Catherine's actually was quite quick to jump on board Teams. We learned the program and the platform over a number of weeks. We had PD that pretty much taught us about the ins and outs of the actual platform, and then we had to start thinking about how could we deliver mathematics on this platform. The staff actually were amazing. We all pulled together and learned very quickly about what would work and what was probably going to be a challenge for us. We actually practiced with the tool within our classrooms while we're still at school. We had some girls, unfortunately, that could not attend school, so that was obviously going to be an issue for us if they could not engage in classes. So we actually got onto Teams quite early. And one of the things that we actually did was we transferred a lot of our work onto OneNote, and were able to project our work on that platform as well, and then write on OneNote and discuss work with the girls on Teams. That was. So there was a lot of professional development within the staff, but also learning from other staff members, from other faculties. We've got staff members who had worked with Teams before at previous employment, so they were able to help us as well and teach us a lot about what Microsoft Teams could do within the class. Maths can be quite dry at times, and it needs to be at times, because obviously there are I guess certain subjects or certain topics where things require, or time is required to just learn key skills. So what we had to do was start thinking about how could we present our information so that it's exciting, engaging, but as well as that too, so that the girls felt like they were actually learning while they were still in this very different type of classroom.
While you're talking there, I was just thinking that last year we spent, as a school, a lot of time preparing our online learning platform, which is a platform called Schoolbox, and we actually call it the portal, as you know, and staff spent a lot of time being trained in how to do that and put resources. Do you think that made a difference to how we adapted to this online environment?
Absolutely. What it meant was that the school had done a fair bit of work, like you said, in setting up the portal. So the girls had already been quite agile on the portal and accessing information, but staff as well. We were using the portal to the best of our ability, popping work on the portal, popping recordings on the portal. The girls were accessing that information quite readily.
And in fact, the maths faculty, because as you know, I regularly walk around the school and have a look at what teachers are up to, but the maths faculty, you're effectively sort of teaching online in the classroom anyway.
Absolutely.
Would you like to share how that works?
So what a lot of us do in the maths department is that we work with booklets or work with notes that we present either on OneNote or Bluebeam, and that's projected up on our screens. Now, when I say a screen, it'd be a screen quite, as big as a TV in the classroom, and we write on our computer and record our mathematics on that computer. And then we've also got the ability to record the screen as well. So we record our voice, record the actual maths on the screen, and then we can actually pop that information on a portal. And what's really useful about that is that the girls have the opportunity to review the teaching that's occurred in the classroom. The girls who unfortunately can't make a lesson, maybe due to another commitment like a music lesson or possibly being ill and unwell and cannot attend, they can go back to that recording that's sitting in the portal and obviously not miss out on a lesson because they're able to access that information once more. But it's also really useful for the girls who, you know, at times haven't quite understood a concept. They have the ability to go back and consolidate that understanding by accessing that recording.
Okay, I just realised I haven't reminded people that there will be the capacity for a bit of Q&A towards the end of the presentation, so feel free to type in some questions and we'll endeavour to respond to them in a little while. So I'm just thinking, Ange, in terms of now that we've been doing this online, and we started a week or so before the end of last term, so we've now been doing that. We're into week 5 this term, so it's really the best part of 6 weeks or so. In what ways have teachers had to adapt and perhaps review their teaching methods in this environment?
So I think what's been quite obvious with this online or learning at home is that, you know, it's quite difficult to maintain focus for 80 minutes. When you're presented with work on a laptop, a computer, a screen. So one of the things that staff have had to think about is how can they still present the work in quite a palatable way, but by the same token keep the girls engaged and also learn all the concepts that they need to learn for that particular lesson. So one of the things that staff have had to do is consider structuring their lessons in a different way. Possibly, you know, a warm-up at the beginning of the lesson, or possibly even presenting a video on the portal before the lesson, asking the girls to view that video so that they do a little bit of pre-learning as they walk into the lesson, and maybe even, you know, giving them a break in the middle of the class so that they could practice their problems and then come back with the teacher and review their work. And what they have learned, what they, you know, struggled with, but also with the extension girls, giving them an opportunity to do different work in the channels that we can set up within Microsoft Teams.
I was just thinking too that because it's not just about the students online, the teachers actually have to cope with it as well, and it's very different from being in a classroom, isn't it? How do they have to adapt to make sure they keep their engagement levels high and battle fatigue factors associated with being on screen all the time?
Well, staff members have, you know, found that to be quite challenging. It is difficult to be online for 80 minutes. So they too have had to think about how they can maintain their own focus within that 80-minute lesson. So one of the things that some staff have had to consider is, like I said, the pre-recording and giving themselves an opportunity to, you know, bring in other elements within the class so the girls can do that while the staff actually can manage other things on the side and bring those in, etc. But even, you know, giving the opportunity for the girls to play with maths, it's so important. So that actually gives the staff some time away from the screen as well, gives girls time to practice skills and then come back and discuss what they've explored, what they've found and what they've seen with those puzzles.
Okay, so so tell us a bit, I'm more thinking particularly about girls in, say, year 10 to 12, about how those older girls, how have they managed and coped over the last number of weeks?
So the girls have been amazing at years 10, 11 and 12, particularly the girls at VCE level, in that they've had to cope with the way the classroom operates. And I think one of the things that's so wonderful about the girls at St Catherine's is they're quite adaptable and, you know, have really made the best of the worst situation that could possibly have arisen. So what they've done is they've, you know, facilitated a lot of their own learning. They've accessed recordings, but the other thing that I think I found with my VCE classes is that the girls are very open to changing things up, making sure that, you know, they can access videos, can access teachers at different times in the day. So, you know, the staff at VCE have made sure that content is still delivered, but have introduced Microsoft Teams meetings outside of school hours, at lunchtime, before school and after school, to make sure that the girls feel supported and that, I guess, information is still being given in the best possible way.
What about the interaction between themselves? Do they organise other separate meetings and things like that?
So I know that the girls have also organised WhatsApp pages or groups. They've organised, you know, team meetings themselves. So it means that the girls have become quite independent in their learning, and I've actually really enjoyed that. But I think too that they've discovered that they can do a lot more than what they thought they could, and there's a real sense of ownership there of what they can do.
I must say, in my conversation with some of the girls, and also with teachers in particular, I do get a strong sense of their level of independence and autonomy that they're bringing to this exercise. And everyone, particularly the students, have gone up a gear, and they've shown that they really can go up a gear.
And they're quite positive. You know, it's quite amazing to see that these girls are not really concerned as much as we thought they would be, given the new type of teaching that we're exposing them to. They've actually been really, like I said, quite agile, very resilient. And, you know, if things haven't gone quite as planned, they've just been quite open to the fact that, you know, they may have to look at that or revisit that in a very different way.
So there's actually been quite a bit in the media about how disadvantaged students are at the moment. I don't get a sense from what you're saying that you feel that's the case for our girls.
Well, at VCE, I think VCAR has obviously made some changes to the requirements at Year 12. So I actually think that there probably is very little disadvantage. I think our girls have actually been quite advantaged. We've still been able to deliver the maths course, and we've actually got more time now because VCE or VCAR has actually cut probably about half the content in Unit 4. So by the time we get back to school, the girls will have had covered, I guess, as much as we normally would have covered had we been at school, but now with more time, given that the exams are in December.
I know that one of the really interesting features of using Microsoft Teams is there are these things called channels, and I think that's been very widely used in the maths faculty.
Absolutely. I think the staff that teach Year 7 right through to Year 9, some have organised these little pods within Microsoft Teams, and so most of these pods or hubs, to use AFL language, are made up of about 4 to 5 students. And so the girls enter these hubs or these channels, and a staff member has organised that in a particular way. You know, sometimes it's, you know, based on friendship, sometimes it's based on mathematical strength. And so the girls work within these little groups of 4, and they practice their skills within these groups, but as well as that too, they actually support one another and connect with one another, which is, I think, what's really important at the moment, given that maybe some of the girls feel like they're somewhat removed from the rest of the school cohort.
Yeah, look, I know my observation, because I've sort of tuned into a few classes here and there, not my own sometimes, and you'll find the students in the channels, and you can drop in on those channels, and parents might actually think when girls left unsupervised, they're not going to work. Every time I've dropped in on a channel, they're actually on task, and the levels of engagement seem strangely enough higher in a lot of ways. I
agree. I mean, the girls are very supportive of one another, and that's what's really lovely to see, that you know, we've even got new girls that have entered into the school who have made some really strong bonds with one another. But it's also interesting, like you said, you walk into these channels and they're talking maths. And there's less distraction because they're walking, or they're working, I should say, in a group of 4 rather than, you know, looking to the side to see what everybody else is doing. So I've actually found them to be quite productive.
You just made me think about assessment, and I would have thought that doing tests online, a natural way to think about that is if you let girls do a test online at home, they can look up their textbook or Google an answer. Or how have you managed to cope with doing online assessment?
Oh, well, the girls, I've got to say, I trust them implicitly. And of course, we can watch them as they're doing the test, but they're just too busy. So what we tend to do is we email them an assessment piece. That assessment piece is then downloaded by the student, and the girls have an opportunity to either print the assessment or just complete it off the actual screen. So by the time they've printed this assessment, it probably takes a good 5 to 10 minutes. They then complete the assessment within a certain time frame, and the staff have had to adjust things, obviously, when it comes to trying to produce, you know, an amount of work within an 80-minute period. And then after that, they scan it back to us, and they're quite able with their little scannable app, send it back to us. That's then emailed back to us. So the girls have been wonderful. Like I said, incredibly resilient.
And I'm assuming the staff are pretty astute at recognising they know the girls well enough to know if the assessment doesn't really match where they think
Absolutely,
they're at.
and we can tell whether they've used a calculator when it hasn't been required, etc. But I've got to say they're pretty much on the mark. Like we can see that the girls are roughly where they would have been had they been at school.
Okay. Just while we're there, please make sure you type in some questions if you've got some. And now that we're looking towards coming back to school again, back to the physical world, I'm just sort of wondering about the lessons learned online over the last few weeks. Is there things that we'd like to keep from that online experience that we want to bring back to the real world?
As I just said before, the girls are quite independent, and I think we need to, introduce different things within our classroom so that we actually use what we've learned from this particular platform. So, allowing them to work independently for a little bit longer, allowing them to work in little hubs in a classroom, allowing them to problem solve on more occasions, allowing them to explore more. I'm reminded of Dan Finkel's work, who's a professor of mathematics education in the US, and he talks about the need for students to play with maths, the need to explore, the need to also question and doubt. And I think if we give girls more opportunity to do that within the classroom when we return, I think we'll be all the better for it.
Okay, and so obviously, like we would have in any cohort of girls in the school, whatever their year level, some students who are extremely skillful and knowledgeable mathematicians, right down to the other end of the scale, girls who really struggle with mathematics. How's the online experience been for that range of abilities and capacities?
So I think sometimes, obviously we've had to differentiate our teaching within the classroom. We always have. It's part of what we've done for a long time at St Catherine's. But I think with the channels, but also with different worksheets for different skill sets, we've been able to maintain that ability to cater for a number of different students. I think the girls who obviously struggle sometimes with mathematics, we've obviously had them always at the forefront of our thinking, considering what certain things we need to put in place for those girls. And I think the channels, like I said, are quite useful in that we can somehow manoeuvre or at least organise things in a certain way so that those girls are with girls that can support them as well.
In conversation I've had with Elka Gainsler, our staff member responsible for learning support in the school, she actually feels the students are being better supported in this online environment. Why do you think that might be the case? And mathematics in particular was mentioned by her.
I think we've had more conversations surrounding how we best support girls. Not only girls, obviously, who have special provisions in place, but also the girls who are at the other end of the scale. I think the fact that we are acutely aware of their needs in this platform means that we're going to be better able to support them.
Yeah. Look, it's been an interesting experience online. We come back, the 10 to 12 students come back in about 10, 12 days' time. What does teachers need to do to prepare for that, or is it just business as usual as soon as everyone comes back?
We're pretty excited about having them back.
Our job I bet they are too.
I think they are, but I think that at the end of the day, our job would be, nothing without the girls. And it's not only just what we do in the classroom, but obviously the relationships that we have with the girls. It will be a little bit of business as usual. I think the girls are actually ready to get working within the class and going back to somewhat of what they've already known and experienced. By the same token, like I said, I'd like to introduce a couple of new things, given that we've learned a lot from this online platform.
I think if there's one thing we've been missing this whole time, schools are very much about relationships.
Absolutely.
And online relationships with screens. And while you can see the girls and talk and laugh, it's not the same as actually being in the classroom, is it?
I've got to say, I've really struggled with not being able to see the girls and read body language because that does inform our teaching practice. But by the same token, we've done the best we can, given the predicament at the moment.
The girls actually seem very forgiving of the teacher, because sometimes with the online, the technology doesn't quite do what you want it to do, and it's easy to press the wrong button at times. Have you found that experience? The girls have been very tolerant about old people?
Very tolerant, but also, just things sometimes, internet crashing and, you know, things just not behaving the way they should be. Absolutely tolerant.
Look, I even had that today in my class, and the girl said, "Oh, Mr. Marshall, to go into that channel, just do this," and they can go there much quicker than I can at times, I find, and I found them
in this digital world is going to be an advantage.
Okay, so what are we going to do now going into next term, do you think? You know, we've been having lots of conversation, and in some ways, you know, the first week or two of this was very much about adapting very quickly, being quick on the pivot, so to speak, and just coping and learning. But I think we're in the process now where we're actually quite thriving in this environment in some ways, but now we're coming back again. What does that mean for next term, particularly for VCE, I think?
Well, I think with VCE, I think the girls, like I said before, are quite eager about just getting down to work, getting back to, you know, completing SACs at school, etc. I think they'll feel quite positive about the fact that, you know, it's business as usual for them. I think the girls that are in the younger year levels will possibly want to, like I said, adopt some of what we've learned within those classes. But like I said, as a teaching staff, I think conversations will be had, not only within our faculty, but cross-faculty about the sorts of things as a school that we can do and implement within the class.
So when the students come back, what do you think the chances of getting much teaching in that first 30 minutes when everyone's in the classroom again?
I think there'll be a lot of jumping for joy. Like I said, I'm really happy about the fact that I'll be teaching and just those incidental conversations that you have with students and that banter sometimes that you have with students. I think we've been missing a bit of that. Yeah.
And of course, all parents will have received an email this afternoon about the online parent-teacher interviews. We postponed them from last term just with the imminent sort of progression of the pandemic and what that meant in terms of running at the school. We had to postpone them, but we're running them online on Wednesday week, and we look forward to parents booking them. Those bookings open from 6 p.m. tomorrow night. As you can gather from Ange and myself, we're actually really looking forward to the girls coming back and we become more like a normal school again. Thank you for your attention this afternoon, and we hope this has been useful for you, and we'll say goodbye for now.
Thank you.